Welcome to the conclusion of Two Atheists and a Christian Walked into a Bar, a special three-part episode of the Semi-Retard podcast with our special guest, Sam Piazza.
I'm not sure. I picked this up somewhere. It might be that. I don't know. But there was an idea that there's a finite number. And once we've expended those, right? Once attached to each
hanging out in
person.
Point Claire Village too late at night, Richard. That's what it is.
And then once that's done, it's like, okay, this current project is over. Now we go to Judgment Day. We start over again with the glorified bodies. Ripped. In my case, I just like to be 4 inches taller. That's all I'm asking for.
Seems reasonable.
I think God would be willing to grant that request.
You notice I didn't ask for any enhancements.
No.
Just 4 inches taller.
Just 4 inches taller.
See, if everyone else asks to be 4 inches taller, then you're just going to be relatively still shorter than everyone else, you know?
Damn it.
Okay. We're past 2 hours here, eh, gentlemen, just to say.
Okay,
But
not
while we're on the concept of souls, heaven, and the concept of the devil.
bad. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good, yeah, let's do that, yeah.
Years ago, I worked with someone, and she was talking about, God and stuff. And I said to her, well, do you believe in the devil? And she said, no, I don't. So, well, how can you believe in one and not the other? Yin yang, the balancing force. Otherwise, you have just one. I mean, the devil is convenient to explain away all the bad stuff. It's what makes us bad. It makes us evil, right? And the devil made me do it. So, is there a being that is a devil? Is that a construct of man? Is it a being?
Yeah, so...
Are they brothers that are pissed off at each other and trying to conquer the world?
Isn't he a fallen angel? He's a fallen angel, right?
Well,
Lucifer?
yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yes, he is a fallen angel. Name is Lucifer.
Lucifer,
yeah. So, yes, he exists, and there are... Well, the Bible describes there's not just one... there's one devil, but there are several demons. So there can be maybe like spawns of Satan that are active in this world. Christianity does not teach that the devil is responsible for bad actions. He can influence us to act in certain ways. And there's other more, let's say, some people might describe it as like fantastical ways that he can operate, like, some people talk about demonic oppression, possession, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which I, as a Christian, I do believe is possible. Although I think that the majority of cases, Satan will use lying as the most frequent, I guess, method of deception. So you'll hear in the Bible, Satan is described as like the father of lies. He's constantly lying to us about who God is, who we are, and then we will act in accordance to that and do bad things. And that's not to say that we are not responsible. We're fully responsible for what we do.
Yep.
One last thing about that is that I think a common misconception that people have about the devil is that he is this like, the red horns, the red being that like looks very scary and all this stuff, and he's very imposing and all that stuff. That's not actually how the Bible describes him. He's described as a beautiful angel,
right?
Who's very pleasing to the eye. And so, yeah, all those representations you see, Halloween, all that stuff is not actually accurate.
So to a believer, with the concept that the devil created atheists by lying to us to turn us against God.
No,
is
I
that
don't
a
think
concept? No?
No.
We can open that on our own?
I mean, some people believe that, yeah. Okay. But no, that's not...
Because it would be convenient for the devil to come down and go out to the Middle East right now and say, by the way, God did this. God created the earthquake, right? And to punish you because you were bad. Mm-hmm. And why wouldn't that happen? Why wouldn't he try to spread some lies to turn people against God?
Yeah, that
obviously in that region it's a different God, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. That is possible. Yeah, I think he can operate like that. Yeah.
While we're there, the concept of devil, heaven, hell. Yeah. What about this is something that's happened to us? Someone will find out that your kids aren't baptized, or you're not baptized, and say you don't believe in God. You're going to go to hell. I'm going to have to pray for you. I'm not sure if I can be your friend, but I can pray for you. To me, there's Yeah. There's a supreme arrogance there to me, in the sense that you are not worthy for me to communicate with you, but I'll go over there, and because I am good, I will pray for you to try to maybe change your mind. And I'm like, don't you have other things to do? Take care of yourself. Don't come and tell me that I'm going to hell. Because if I'm an atheist, there's no hell.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not trying to belittle them or whatever. It's their faith. I get it. Where does that belief come from, and what does it give them to believe in that concept?
The concept of prayer, you mean?
I can't be friends with you, but I can pray for you. As if they will be soiled by being in our presence. But they will pray for us, hopefully, that, we will see the light, come to God, whatever.
I don't think that that's something that is consistent with the Christian teaching. So I'm not sure. Maybe that's just like a bad experience, or a list of, or a series of bad experiences. I'm not sure. But as Christians, like, we're meant to love and express God's love to all.
I have to say, never in my life has a person who I've known to be Christian been rude or ungracious to me, ever. I never had that experience. I might disagree fundamentally, logically, emotionally with the tenets of the faith, but no, I've never seen that. No one's
agree.
ever.
This is an isolated incident.
Yeah.
Just
no, hey, look,
isolated.
I would tell you, I'd bring it up here, but no, unfailingly, to me anyways. I mean, anybody in my family, on the girl's mother's side, there's some priests, great guys, really enjoyed them, enjoyed their company. Thinking of Raymond specifically. Great guy. Then I think of my wife's brother's family, very Roman Catholic Christian. To me, the good manifestation of that, in the sense of it seems to, in them, produce a good effect, is the best I can say. I still disagree with all of it. Yeah. But it doesn't seem to be causing them to do anything unpleasant that I've been able to perceive. They just believe a bunch of stuff I don't believe. And, life moves on.
I have a topic here that we touched on the aliens before, right?
Yes.
So that would be one of our things.
I always touch on the aliens. Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about science, how do you reconcile the belief of evolution in the Christian teachings? Because if you follow literally the Bible, it doesn't seem to have been worked in there. Obviously, it was written before the theories of evolution came out. But now that they are out and are pretty much accepted, I'm sure there's if we had 1 million listeners, some of them would be screaming. But some people would say, no, absolutely, that does not work, because according to scriptures, God created man, and that's what it was, right? And the woman came from the rib. You, as a person of faith, as an obvious believer, is strong in your belief, how do you feel about evolution?
I don't have any problems at all with evolution. One of the things you were insinuating is that, there's a conflict, or apparent conflict, between a literal reading of the Bible and theory of evolution. If you read the Bible and understand it in its proper context, there's no reason to believe that and I'm speaking specifically about Genesis here, the account of creation, is meant to be interpreted literally. There's many different genres in the Bible, the different books, different genres, different styles, and there are clear markers, I think, that will let the reader know what type of style it's in. I would say Genesis, for one, is not meant at all to be a scientific account of the beginning of the universe. The authors did not have that in mind when they were writing. Christians disagree on whether the 6-day account is meant to be literal. Some people do take it literally, but I think that, personally speaking, to me, there are a lot of markers in text that show that it is not meant to be taken literally. And just to give you an example, in the Genesis account, you see the word day in Hebrew is actually it's yom, I think, Y-O-M. And that word is used multiple places in Genesis, not as a 24-hour period. At the very least, the opinion we should have, cautiously, is that we don't know what sense the word day there is meant to be used in. It could be an unspecified period of time. It could be just saying that the creation happened in stages. We don't really know. So I would just say, Christians in general disagree on whether the Bible teaches old earth, young earth, etc., and what different views come as a result. There are, I should mention, a lot of Christian scientists that actually believe evolution. So, I don't know if you guys know Francis Collins.
I do not.
No, he's a really well-known scientist. He was one of the leads, the Human Genome Project.
Okay.
And he's a well-known Christian, and he believes in evolution. He's a theistic evolutionist, that's the technical term. And he fully believes that...
Maybe I have heard that name. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, he believes that the account of creation is fully compatible with the theory of evolution. I don't think that there's any conflict. The only place where
I'd like to hear that. I'll look him up on YouTube. I'm sure it's out there.
I took a note, yeah.
Yeah.
He has some interesting stuff about, like, especially he talks about like DNA and all that, and how it's amazing how there's literal like software code in our genes, which anyways, it's a separate point, but
It's a good topic. And I do find people who are actual, I find it for me interesting. Well, it's such an overused word maybe, but curious that you can have a working scientist who is able to also incorporate religion into his life. They seem to me to be at odds with one another. And that's just because I'm so non-religious, I can't see the connection. But they seem to be at odds. It seems to me that you either believe in science or you're on the faith, belief, religious side of the equation. I don't see how the two mix. So this guy, I'd like to see him talk.
I've heard that argument before where Christian scientists will look at exactly things like DNA and the inner workings, the atomic levels, and say, look at, if you don't believe in God, look at this. Could this have happened by chance? This is the beauty of God in the fact of atoms and the way things are put together. This cannot be chance that these things came together. Mm-hmm. Right. So just to go back, Yom could be a point in time, a period of time, or a period of unspecified length. Yeah. And if you go 6 days, you can imagine at some point that was their concept of time. A year was probably a little longer because it's when the sun comes and whatever, whereas a day was easy for them to measure. Sun comes up, sun goes down. Mm-hmm. That's a period of time. 6 days, seventh day, conveniently, is the day of rest or worship. Which is a rest for some, not rest for others. Yeah, Sabbath or, exactly.
My impression always is that the Bible largely is not meant to be taken literally anyways. That's what I've always understood. And again, you're familiar with it. I'm not. Yeah. There's some stories in there, tall tales from the old days, let's call them. Yeah. And then there's, the Old Testament meant to deliver certain messages, often very metaphorical language, allegorical language. And then you've got Jesus' teachings, which I think were fundamentally good. I'll say that as we're talking through this. Like, it seems to me that if there was such a person and that there was a charismatic preacher guy preaching in that part of the world, that the ideas are good. I contend that they got messed up by people, especially the Roman, get back to that thought, turned it into something it shouldn't have been. But I think the general ideas were good. Just they didn't need all the stuff attached to them.
I don't discount the existence of someone named Jesus.
Me neither.
Who could have been, who was a preacher. There are stories that show he was a rabbi, right?
Yeah.
So he was a rabbi, would have had a following. There's the theories that he would have been a radical at the time against the system as it was. The way the entrenched systems were.
Well, he wasn't a pagan, no.
Going in, the Pharisees tipping over the tables of the moneylenders or whatever, that kind of thing. And at some point got very popular, but maybe in a little bit too radical way. And the Romans came in and said, well, here's a guy who's getting popular. Yeah. We're going to whitewash him. We're going to adopt him. We're going to tone down some things. We're going to remove a couple of books here and there. We're going to make them all nice and all good. Because that's what we want our people to follow and our people to be. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
That's after crucifying him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Oops, did we do that?
Yeah. It was the Romans under Pontius Pilate who did that. But it was at the bequest of the Jewish authorities.
That's right.
Which they tend to gloss over now.
That's right. Yeah. That's come up. Yeah. They actually,
So, in a sense, they took someone who may have been preaching a change, maybe radical at the time, and when it started to gain a following, they took it, mixed a bunch of beliefs in, changed some dates depending on what you've read, and came up with a system that now says, oh, by the way, he wasn't just a preacher. This guy's important. Let's make him the Son of God.
You're saying that the Romans did this?
Somewhat. I don't believe that Jesus was the Son of God. Absolutely not. I believe he was a rabbi. He existed. He had a following. Son of God? Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm. The interesting part of that is that the early believers, so disciples and the friends of the disciples or people who knew them, truly believed that Jesus was the Son of God. And I don't think that you can get, just to push back slightly on that, like, I don't think that the notion of Jesus as the Son of God and all that came like as a creation after the fact, because I think that the people who were with him in the earliest days, his disciples, were clearly convinced that he was who he said he was and did actually rise from the dead, etc.
My impression is that the people around him believed that of him. I don't know where I got that.
Were a lot of those texts written much later?
No, not actually. No.
They're contemporary with his time. By the way, here we are. He turned the loaves into, and the guy's writing the stories down as it's happening.
You'd have to double check on the dates, but I'm fairly certain that the Gospels, don't quote me on this, but the Gospels, I believe, are all written within 100 years or 150 years within.
I feel like I've heard something like that. But I think what Richard's alluding to is the fact that work on the Bible continued. Well, after Constantine made Christianity the official state religion, which is in about 325 AD, suddenly they started to put a lot of work into it. There was the Council of Nicaea, and these other huge meetings were convened to sort out and codify the religion, because it was Constantine's religion now, and everybody take it real seriously.
Yeah,
is my understanding.
Yes, those things happened, although I think one of the misunderstandings is that the Council of Nicaea was kind of like is an arbitrary sort of point where, like, you know, the officials came together and like, well, I don't like this thing and I'm going to choose to include this and exclude that. That wasn't actually the case. So the Council of Nicaea was just a confirmation of what the early believers and the early church fathers had believed. I guess unofficially believed. And so they were just making those beliefs official through that. It was kind of like a confirmation of what was already believed and known by the church.
You're right. Well, my impression was there was some sort of clarification going on. Let's make some decisions here. We can't have this and this, so we'll have this. And like, you know, ding, 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 ding. And at the end, like any good meeting, you would have a product. And that was the church teachings.
So it says here the four Gospels were written 40 years later. Mm-hmm. So 40 years after an event of whether it's it's not clear. 40 years from the death. So at that point, you've got 40 years of time that have passed in which it's an easy time for a myth to grow and to say, well, here was this guy who was crucified. We believe in his teachings. Why can't we give him some deity now? Let's give him some extra powers so that his legend will live on. Because if he's just the same guy as the guy on the cross, whatever, just a regular guy, it's not enough for that martyrship to carry through time. I'm not sure at the time they were saying, hey, this is going to be the bestseller. It's going to go on forever. But to give it some sort of more importance, more pizzazz, if you want, and I'm not using that flippantly. I mean, like, to give it a sense of elevation, let's make him the Son of God. Let's say that he said he was the Son of God. And I'm writing this as one of his disciples. I was with him. I was there, firsthand account. Here we go. This is what I believe. Whether it was actually true, they could have got together and said, this is what we're going to do. They may have been hanging out together. I don't know the full story. Details are sketchy from back then. But it could have been part of a plan to say, there's something good here. How can we make it carry on? And if he's just a guy, he's just a guy. It's going to die off. Possible theory. I'm just throwing it out there.
I guess I'd ask, like, what would be the benefit for them? Because at the time, it seems like everything was pointing, I mean, before the Christianity became the official state religion, it doesn't seem advantageous for them at all. And actually, I think it was Peter and I think there was someone else who actually got crucified and beheaded.
John the Baptist, yeah.
Like upside down for his faith. And so it's just tough to see how that would be beneficial.
Well, Constantine was what? How many years after?
325 AD, roughly.
Oh, so a long time.
Oh, no, it's several centuries after. Again, he saw a burning cross in the sky. Christianity was still a sect within the empire. Christians were regularly being persecuted at this point. Exactly. It hadn't died out. Clearly, there was an idea that it persisted for 300 years, which is a long time. And Constantine said, that's it. Now is the state religion.
That kind of reinforces what I'm saying. It would not have gone on if he was just a regular guy. And so the myth was invented to give him that stature that helped carry it for 300 years and become a movement of such importance that the Romans had no choice but to recognize him.
I don't think that the historical events corroborate that because, like, we're talking about, who was it?
Constantine, the emperor. Yeah, sorry.
So, based on our historical records, like Dave, you were saying, it was kind of like a conversion, a drastic conversion event. I don't think there's very strong evidence to show that Constantine sort of went along with the Christian the Christian story because it, there were a lot of Christians at the time, and it would be advantageous for him to do this.
Oh no, I think he just did because he was the man in charge. It was just sheer imperial power. And he believed that the cross that he saw in the sky had allowed him to triumph over his enemy at the Milvian Bridge. And because he was the emperor of Rome, he could basically do what he wanted.
I just don't see why, like, what the big reason is there. Because
I agree with you. Like, I don't know what the backstory to that was. Was he already attracted to Christianity as an idea?
Rome
saw his revelation. What's that?
Rome was polytheistic.
It was pagan, yeah. Polytheistic, yeah. It was pagan empire.
That's maybe I just lack in.
I've read it somewhere, but I can't remember.
Yeah,
it's
I'm
okay.
looking. It doesn't say anything about the fiery cross. He passed.
It's there.
Being.
Look up the battle at Milvian Bridge. Milvian.
It says here he spent most of his life as a pagan and later as a catchman.
Who?
Catechummen. Catchman.
Never seen that one?
No. He began to favor Christianity beginning in 312, finally becoming Christian and baptized after Eusebius of Nicomedia.
Eusebius of Nicomedia. Yeah. There's a battle at the Milvian Bridge. He sees the flaming cross. It says, "By this shall ye conquer." And he goes, "That's it. That's for me."
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, it's a possibility.
Yeah.
It would be some fantastic guerrilla marketing.
That's for sure.
I just find it hard to believe. It would be in the interest of the early believers to do that, because it seemed like everything was pointing actually in the opposite direction, that they would be persecuted, and they were persecuted for
Didn't stop the Jews from preaching their religion for how many years? They were persecuted the entirety of their history. They never changed their faith.
I don't know enough to comment on that, but
I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, we have to start to wind this down.
Okay.
Did we cover everything? Is there anything you wanted to finish with?
I can't think of anything else.
Here's one. I'll throw it out and then you can throw it back at us.
Yeah.
What would it take for you to lose your faith? Could there be an event? What kind of event would it take? And I guess conversely, what would it take for us
that
to all
has
of a
to
sudden
be asked, yeah.
get faith, get our faith?
It's a fantastic question. I've been asked
and I must say, it's not my question. It was suggested to me.
It's something I talk with my friend Matt a lot. And what I would say is, I think if I come to a place where I can see that the concept of God is illogical. So, for example, if I see that the concept of God as being an all-loving, all-powerful, all-knowing, just creator just doesn't make sense in light of what we know, then I would consider not being a Christian anymore, because I think that that's an essential part of who God is. As to what specifically would lead me, that's a tough question, because I don't really think that as humans we can control what we believe. I think things happen and we sort of like belief occurs as a result, and we don't really control that. So I don't know how I'd react given certain information. I mean, I spend a lot of time listening to agnostics and atheists talk about their arguments and their counter arguments to the existence of God. And I think that some of them are quite powerful. Like, for example, the argument from divine hiddenness, which I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with.
Never heard of it. No.
Essentially, the argument is, why is God not as obvious or evident to us?
Why is he hiding?
If he really wants a relationship with me, why doesn't he like reveal himself in such a way that it would be like
unmistakable to you?
Unmistakable, exactly.
Yeah.
Also, the problem of evil is something that I think everyone should take seriously, and which I think about a lot, because it's something that, like, you know, it goes to the very core of what it means to be human, right? It's something that everyone deals with every day. And that, to me, is very difficult. Although I still think that Christianity, out of all the worldviews that are out there, provides the most sense of it. And I can elaborate about that another time. But I think, in general, it provides a framework where suffering can be understood. So, yeah, I think one last thing would be probably if we find out good evidence that Jesus did not actually rise from the dead, because there's historical evidence for that. But if we find out one day that, you know, this was a hoax or whatever, I would seriously reconsider, because that single event is one that I would say the entirety of the Christian belief hinges on. And even the Apostle Paul says that himself. He said, if Christ did not raise, your faith is in vain and you should be pitied.
I could take it if you want. For me, there is nothing, I don't think, that right now I can't describe something that would make me believe in God all of a sudden, only because I can't imagine something. It doesn't mean that there can't be. To me, it's unfathomable right now that something would happen, even if I was to have a near-death experience. Some people see the light, whatever it is, something speaks to you, you come back, doctors are pumping you, you're alive. Is that enough? I don't know. I guess it would have to be in the moment. And I think for me, it would have to be the kind of thing that it would have to be in the moment. It would have to be extraordinary enough that I couldn't put a scientific reasoning behind it. And even then, just like I don't know how the Big Bang started, but I believe it. Mm-hmm. I think I would have trouble believing it then too, for the same sort of reason, because there's a part of me that just, it doesn't make sense. So it would have to be something completely dramatic, or dramatic's probably not the right word.
Unexplainable in scientific
unexplainable terms. But more than that, because the Big Bang to me happened. How did it happen? I can't tell you exactly. I know it. I believe it happened. Mm-hmm. That I can believe in. For the other thing, it would have to be something that defies all the possibility of an explanation other than that. The Sherlock Holmes thing. Eliminate all the possibilities, whatever's left.
That's right, whatever remains. But yeah, it's Occam's razor. Isn't that it? I think it's Occam's razor?
It's Occam's Sherlock.
Occam's Sherlock, yeah. So for me, again, I've never felt any attraction to the idea of a God or we talked about Christianity. Let's religion in general. Let's face it, religion is a popular phenomenon around the world. Mm-hmm. Hinduism, Buddhism, all kinds of Christianity is what we talk about because it's the one that we're actually in that Judeo-Christian culture. We live in that tradition. I can recall thinking this as far back as I can remember. I felt that the idea of religion and God was something old-fashioned. It seemed to be something from the past that we were growing out of, as the sciences came into their own, and we began to displace the earth from the center and all that stuff. And as we move along, and that fast forward 500 years, certainly I think Christianity might crumble before some of the older Eastern religions, which seem a bit more durable. We're so cynical in the West now, sort of thing. I mean, everything is like right in front of us and we can understand this and understand that. Mm-hmm. I think that it's understand why it's still here. I would have to completely invert my worldview to be able to actually accept a God into it. It doesn't make sense to me at all. I don't know where that fits. I get the galaxies. I keep saying this all night. I get the protons. I get all that stuff. Electrons whizzing around. I love all this amazing stuff. Animals and all this. I can't fit a God in there. I don't want to either. I don't know where I'd put him. Mm-hmm. That's it. Sorry, big guy. I mean,
hedging your bets,
hedging my bets. Yeah, I shouldn't do that. That's what it comes down to for me. But like I said, I know that religion, let's say, as an idea, is an incredibly popular human concept. Again, in some people, it manifests itself harmlessly, but for me, there's so much freight packed around it and not good stuff. I'd like to see Christianity, or the Catholic Church anyway, shed all that stuff. Drop all the robes. I'm sorry, all the confessions. No, just drop all that. Let's just drop it, lose it, and talk about being good to each other. That's good. That's good stuff, right?
Back to the core of the message as opposed to the trappings.
Yeah, no white smoke out of the Vatican. Come on. It's 2023. Move on. And then I think at the core of that, if somebody wants to believe in a set of values, to each their own. I mean, it's freedom of choice, but not for me.
I could probably press you guys a bit on that, but I think we probably should wrap it up here. I think all that.
Let's come back for round 2 later.
Yeah, we can do a follow-up in a couple of months.
Yeah,
digest all this.
Yeah.
And come back and counterpoint.
Because there's lots of good discussion to be had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really appreciated it. Really enjoyed it.
I did. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, very much so.
Same here.
We're wrapping up.
So have a great week, everybody.
Have a great week.
See you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.